Three, two, one. So, Amanda, first and foremost, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show. I greatly appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So you're located where in New York?
In New York, in Orange County, upstate.
Okay.
hmm
How's everything going with like restrictions and the pandemic in general?
we were going forwards and then kind of going backwards. Masks are coming back on. I work in a school district that requires masks. So, I mean, it's
Yeah.
kind of it depends on where you go, really, honestly. Closer to the city, it's kind
hmm
of more strict. You're going to have to show your vaccination cards and things like that. But, um, I mean, it's
Yeah.
not too bad. But
Yeah. Yeah. How did like I guess so from a competitive standpoint, how did it affect your training when this whole thing kind of started? Were you able to train? I know New York was one of the places where it was like really bad. So
yeah. Yeah, so everything shut down by us, but thankfully I did have a friend that owned a gym. And
hmm.
so it was kind of low key, sneaking into there, getting my workouts in and doing what I needed to do, thank goodness. And then other than that, I was doing kind of garage lifts from friends' house and things like that, just doing anything to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sprinting up and down hills outside, everyone was doing things that we don't usually do. But as competitors, that's what makes us who we are, right? We just find a way. So
Right.
thankfully, I
Right.
was able to keep up with it. I was doing a prep at that point. I had to stop the prep, obviously, because it was just getting really difficult.
hmm
And the unknown, like you're prepping for a show in hopes that it's going to stay when it is. But at that point, it was just too much craziness. So I
Yeah.
ended up ending that prep for the better, doing some growing in that time. And I had some pretty good gains coming out of quarantine. So I was happy about that.
So you just went straight into like an off season, just stop the
Right.
prep.
Yeah, I mean, it was good because I did recomp my body. I stripped some fat that I didn't need there, and then I kind of gave my body a minute to relax.
hmm
But yeah, we just picked up some muscle and then move forward.
Yeah, it was tough because I knew people that were prepping and they were like close to their stage shape, and
Yeah.
then the shows got canceled, and it's like all that work, all that dieting, really for nothing. It's rough, and people that don't like compete don't really understand that, like the suffering that you have to go through to get to that point, and then not being able to actually step on stage is tough.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't imagine being like 4 weeks out and you telling me like, "Oh, the show's not happening." I would have
hmm
lost it.
Yeah,
That's tough.
yeah, and that's kind of like what ended up happening. It's like everybody who didn't get a chance to train or like legitimately train, they didn't really progress that great. And then you had some people who were like at the top level, like IBB, who kind of maybe owned their own gym or had
Right.
access to a gym. They were still good. So it was like I think that's kind of like you started seeing the shows that they were having, like you had like big gaps between people, and I think
Yeah.
that probably like is attributed to some of that, I would
Mhm.
think.
And that
Yeah.
was a huge mental game too, because in your mind, you're thinking like, okay, I'm doing everything I can to make it work. But what if there's that one competitor that has access to a full blown gym,
Right.
that has access to a Stairmaster, like all these factors are coming into play. And it was hard.
Sure. Did you notice, I know you said you stripped some body fat off during that time. Did you notice like a lack of how can I put this? Like did not training at like a real gym significantly like affect your physique?
Thankfully, I was training at a real gym enough where it
hmm
wasn't. But I could definitely see, those garage workouts. Like there was a period of time where he was actually revamping that gym so we couldn't go. So that
hmm
whole week I was doing like curls in the basement, like just doing anything,
Yeah.
walking lunges in the driveway. And like just mentally, I took a toll on me because I'm like, oh, this is not what I'm used to. You know what I mean?
Right.
Especially as athletes when you train to such an extreme and then you
hmm
don't have that, it's kind of scary because you're like, okay, here we go, we're going to lose it all.
Right.
So I think more than anything mentally, I think physically it probably was better for my body to take that small break.
hmm
But yeah, mentally it was definitely hard.
I definitely think that it's mental connection to your muscles is extremely important. And when you're used to training, I had the same like experience as far as like moving from a gym to like a garage, even though you said some of that training you did do in the real gym. But in in the gym, like I felt like the way I was training, the way I'm used to training, the gains that I see, I'm like, I understand that that's what's going to happen. I'm going to lift this weight at this gym. I'm going to push myself real hard. I'm going to have a mind muscle connection, and I'm going to progress. In the garage, like mentally, I was thinking to myself, like, okay, this is doing nothing.
Mhm.
And whether it was or wasn't, I don't know. But it's like, but like I'm just moving weight, and then it gets hard to even want to train. So it's
Yeah.
like, so it's kind of like, okay, well, do I go in this garage and do I pull, push this weight? Is it doing anything for me? Is it better for me just not even worry about it and wait until the gym's reopen? Like it's all kinds of stuff like is going through your head during that period of time. So
Yeah, it definitely was hard being, I mean, just in general, going through a quarantine like that is hard because
mhm,
here you are with your routine just being stripped away from you. I was teaching at the time, then I had to teach from home and I had to just like keep it together for my
mhm,
students, even though it was inside tearing me apart. So, and then especially for competitors, you give it to us and, every single day we're used to our routine, our fasted cardio, or this or that. And then
right,
everything, like at that moment, I was like, wow, anything could happen. If the gym can be closed, like anything can happen.
right,
So
right.
that was another piece for all of us that was difficult.
Yeah, I heard of people like sneaking into gyms. Actually, some of them were in New York, and it's like, who would have thought that going to the gym would have made you like some kind of like persona non grata like type of
I
like
know.
you're like selling drugs or something. It's like you're just
I
sneaking
felt so,
into a
I
gym.
know. The gym owner used to be like, make sure you come in jeans so that when you're walking in from the outside, it doesn't look like anything. It just looks like you're working here. I'm like, oh
Yeah,
my goodness, I could get arrested for,
yeah.
for like training shoulders right now. This is crazy.
Right, right. Nobody ever thought something like that would happen. You said you teach. What do you teach?
I do. I teach kindergarten.
Oh, kindergarten. Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess they're not. So if they were a little older, my question I would have asked you is what do your students think of like the fact that bodybuild? Are they old enough to like understand that or not really?
They're 5 and 6.
Hmm.
It's funny. Everyone always asks me like, do they say anything to you? And they
Hmm.
totally do notice the little things like me carrying my water gallon in and out. They're like, wow, Jose, you drink a lot of water. So just little things are like they ask me what I had for lunch every day, and it's the
Hmm.
same thing, and they're like, again.
Yeah,
So like they notice little things like that. We do
that's
exercise
cute.
in the morning, so I kind of like incorporate it a little bit into the classroom too. But they're not
Yeah,
old enough where like if they were fifth graders, they would totally know the difference.
sure, sure. Yeah.
But they do tell me things like, "Wow, you're strong," or things like
Hmm.
that. So
That's
it's
adorable. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, well, that's good that you're incorporating some training into like their routine because, I mean, honestly, if you think about people that exercise, it's like let's just say the United States, probably in the world, is like probably just 1%, if that,
mhm,
and then those who like take it to the next level, even less. So it's like really bodybuilding and training is like a very niche thing. You see it kind of everywhere on Instagram, but it's not. But in a life scenario, it's not a lot of people train. Like I can walk down the street in my neighborhood and maybe like one or two houses there's people that are trained. It's like the rest just live. And
I
it's
don't know what
one.
they do. I'm
Yeah,
like,
I
I don't know how
mean,
you do that.
yeah, I wouldn't know what to do if I didn't have like training as my like way, my outlet. It's definitely it's definitely like a big part of my life and has been for a while. What about you? Like, when did you start getting into training and fitness?
Yeah, so I played sports my whole life. I was
Hmm.
into basketball and soccer and softball since I was younger. And then I played varsity softball, soccer, and basketball in high school. And then I ended up getting picked to play at Mount St. Mary College in Newburgh. I played 4 years of college softball. So through that, I knew that, I was like addicted to the sport. I
Hmm.
just became that hardcore athlete that was just doing anything and everything inside of the gym and outside to just get better at my sport.
Hmm.
And then as I kind of approached my junior year of college, I thought to myself, well, hold on, this is like coming to an end. Like
Right.
I'm going to have to hang up the cleats one day and hang up the jersey. And what am I going to do with my life after that? So
Mhm.
I actually ran into a friend at the gym, and she was a competitor, and she's like, you would be great for this. You should get involved in it. And so then I started picking up powerlifting a little bit.
Mhm.
I did some, I was loving being strong in my bench and my deadlift and my squat. That's kind of, I fell in love with powerlifting first initially. And then I wanted to compete in it, but I was still playing college softball. So my coaches did not like the fact that I was, dabbling into powerlifting and possibly getting hurt and risking my senior year. So I kind of just got into the aesthetics of it. So that's
Yeah.
when I kind of was doing, the hybrid. I was doing a little bit of powerlifting, a little bit of bodybuilding. And then ever since then, I kind of loved bodybuilding and I just was addicted to it. So that kind of became my next thing.
When did, well, I guess to backtrack, yeah, that is something that happens to athletes, right? Like it's like very small percentage make it to like the professionals, and then everyone else has to decide like what happens next, right?
Right.
Like you're, what do you do? It's like there's not, once you're out of school, it's like, well, do you play for club teams now? Do you like, do
I
you
know.
just completely give up on athletics altogether? So a lot of times, like you transition to into like bodybuilding and training. Because I just had Wendy Fertino on, and she was training for actually Olympic like running, and she
Mhm.
got hurt, and it's like couldn't really run anymore. It's like, what do you do? And that's how she got into, into figure and in bodybuilding. And so it happens like that, a lot. um at what point did you compete? So like you start training, like how long before your first competition?
So I started training when I was a junior in college, and then senior this summer after I graduated was my first
Hmm.
competition.
So you
But
waited
that was
till you were
like,
done.
yeah, I waited till I was done. But I was like prepping towards the end. Like we were playing at regionals and I was in prep, I was, in the dugout eating my chicken and rice, still start. So I was really performing at a level where I kind of couldn't, but I just kept going.
Yeah.
But I knew that I wasn't stopping there. So I prepped myself for my first show pretty much up until the last couple weeks. And then I picked up my coach. So,
Mhm.
my first showing wasn't the best, but that was when I got my feet wet.
Yeah.
And after stepping on stage the first time, I fell in love with it. So
What division did you compete in?
figure, I always started figure.
Figure.
Yeah,
And
most figure girls start in bikini, but that was never for me.
so what's interesting is a lot of girls that are did like softball and stuff, they kind of have that like strong muscular build already. And I mean, obviously that's a broad stroke statement. I mean, I'm sure there's women that aren't like that, but a lot of times when I see it, like visually, they seem already pretty strong. Also, like women that play volleyball too, is kind
Mhm.
of sometimes fall into that same category. So it makes sense that you would bypass bikini and just go straight to figure. Have you had like aspirations to go, more muscular physique, like women's physique or something like that?
Um, I've thought about doing, the natural division and doing that route because I feel like that way I would have the amount of muscle, but in
Mm,
NPC, definitely I'm not there
yeah,
yet. And I
right.
don't see that for quite some time. I really do love figure.
Yeah,
I love the femininity of it. I love that they chase, the X frame and things like that. So I'm
yeah.
kind of in love with figure for now. Who's to say what happens in the future? But
Sure. I mean, that's the trade-off, right? The trade-off is like your femininity, right? It's like you not that you can't be women's physique can be feminine, but there is some level of like change that happens, as
right.
you add more muscle to your frame.
Mhm.
So and I, yeah, like figure I would say is it got that balance. Now, I mean, now that they're introducing wellness
Mhm.
to the sport. Like, what do you think about that when you heard about that division?
Yeah, I mean, I think wellness is really interesting. These girls have some legs. I mean, bigger legs than most figure girls.
Yeah.
It's an interesting division. I think it makes for more competitors. I don't think I'll ever dabble into it. I think my upper body would have to come down a lot, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting, and I
Yeah.
think it allows for a lot of more females to get into the sport without compromising their structure and what works best for them.
Right.
Because there are a lot of girls that just have wellness bodies, like to begin with,
Yeah.
because they don't like to train upper body as much, and they have strong legs. So it's making for
Yeah.
a lot more money in the NPC for sure.
Yeah. I think that's that was the idea, right? To increase the sport and make it bigger. And then also, I believe wellness was already pretty popular in other other countries around the world. So it seemed like it would be like a natural transition to, to get into to the IBB. So,
Mhm.
we'll see what happens with everything.
Mhm.
So at this point, like, what are your plans? Are you prepping for a show? Are you thinking about one?
So I just, well, a month ago, it feels like yesterday, but I competed in nationals at USA's and I placed fourth. So that was a good placing for my first,
That is
national
that
show.
is a very good placing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was upset about it, obviously, because to me it's a loss if it wasn't, I
Right.
came there to do one thing. So my fire is still lit and I'm still excited to move forward. But my coach and I have decided that we're going to take a short break, like shorter than I really thought.
Mhm.
And then we're going to do another national show because my judges' feedback was that they wanted my back wider and just tighter hams.
Mhm.
So we've been hacking at that. Right now I'm in my off season, and then I've been talking to him, and in a couple weeks we're going to begin prep again.
Got it.
So I'm giving
So,
another.
how are you when you're saying that a wider back, like tighter hamstrings? I guess
That's
conditioning,
conditioning. Yeah.
but like wider back. How do how you plan to do that?
So I've been pulling up like crazy,
Mhm.
pull ups, and just refueling after back days, giving myself those huge rest days after back days, and just kind of taking my back training to a new level and focusing on lats. Because hopefully, they sprout the way they need to make the illusion.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. The back is a intricate, you know, uh, part of the body because there's so much in it and so much can make your shape look different ways. So it's like you might not even necessarily not have enough muscle. It might just be like the way it's developing, So just changing your routine sometimes can make an adjustment in your physique. So
Right.
yeah, how long is your prep going to be?
It's gonna be about 3 or 4 months
Three or four
as of
months.
right
So
now.
about like what normally it would be.
About, yeah, which usually I never do. Usually my preps are like 5 or 6 months.
Oh,
I
you
take
so
a
you get
while.
longer.
Right. I take a while to come down. I mean, that was from, my last prep was about 5 or 6 months, but that
Mhm.
was coming down from my biggest bulk. I was
Right,
the heaviest I've ever been.
right.
But now I'm kind of in a place where this is where my body evens out. Like this is where my body naturally stays.
Mhm.
So now I'm just adding, the muscle needed and then cutting down. So I'm leaner than I was last time. So I need less time.
What was the heaviest you've been? You said it was your biggest bulk.
Yeah, I was about 150 at 5'2".
150.
So
What do you step on stage at usually?
on nationals, I stepped on stage at 118.
Oh, 118. That's
And
pretty
I was,
low. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it,
when I first got nationally qualified, I was 105 pounds. And then I did a crazy bulk and I added a lot of muscle tissue. And that's why I
yeah.
stepped on stage at 118. So,
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely because like looking at your pictures, like you definitely don't look 118. You look like you've got more muscle than what that.
everyone always says that. They
Yeah,
meet me in person and they're like, oh my God, I thought you were so much bigger.
yeah. I mean, it's a great thing because, like you said, I mean, a lot of that comes down to like just your shape and your structure, right? And it's like if you must have that genetically, gifted shape and structure that you look bigger than what you really are. Is there like, do you usually have like the goal is it like weight or just the way you look? Like how do you choose when you're on track?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously through check-ins, I check in with my coach every Friday, and we kind of go from there. There usually is, he's interesting because he can kind of look at me like in the off season and say, okay, looking at what you are now, I can predict kind of what your stage weight would be.
Mm-hmm.
So like for nationals, he was saying, I could imagine that you'll be anywhere from 115 to 120. And that's exactly where we were.
Mm-hmm.
So as we go on, he can kind of find that sweet spot and see where the lines are coming through, where we need to lose it. So there is kind of a goal range number, but obviously if we don't hit that, so long as I look conditioned and shredded, then we are where we need to be. So
Right. So the goal now is to do another national qualifier, place to what? To the point where you can go to nationals and
no,
then
I'm going to
oh,
national.
you're going
I
to
am qualified.
nationals.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're qualified now. So
Mhm.
now you're chasing pro card.
Yes.
essentially. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, they're giving out, a decent amount of pro cards. It shouldn't, your chances should be, really good, especially with the physique that you're bringing. And the only things that they really wanted you to do is tighten up your hamstrings, which that would be super, that should be fairly easy. And then your back, you're working hard on that. So I'm sure they'll come in, just right. So, I don't see why that wouldn't happen for you pretty
Yeah, so
soon.
that's, yeah. When we talked and we conference, he kind of just said like that feedback is not a lot. It's not like they said, okay, you need, huge quads or you need a bit,
Right.
it wasn't that they told me I needed a lot all around. It was two
Right.
specific things, and one of those things being conditioning.
Yeah.
So I mean, at the end of the day, if I hammer back, the short off season is going to be, hopefully I make the changes needed and then I bring the package that they're asking for. So
Right. If you turn pro, let's just say when you turn pro, are you planning to just hit the pro stage immediately, or are you gonna take some time to try to grow?
I mean, we'll see.
Hmm.
I'm kind of that competitor that I take it like step by step. A lot of competitors have like the grand scheme and they're like, oh, I want to go to Olympia or this. I am totally the competitor that's like step for step, like first
Yeah.
nationals and then we'll see.
Yeah.
So, if I go to nationals and get my pro card and then where I'm at where they need me to be and they like the shape, they like the conditioning, then sure, I'll take that package to a stage if they're telling me it's a good idea to do so.
Yeah.
But if my feedback says that I need to grow, then obviously I'm going to take the 1 or 2 years off to really bring a different package.
Sure, sure.
So,
That makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, we'll see what happens, but yeah, that's a good mentality to have, to be like goal oriented, and just have one goal, finish that goal, take care of it, get it in the rear view mirror, then move on to the next one. Sometimes if you try to bite off too much, think about too much, you're not like, you don't become as focused on that thing that's right in front of you. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. So in your opinion, I mean, we know we talked about some weaknesses. What's the biggest strength that you bring to the stage?
Um, yeah. It's funny because my back was something that always had to come up. That's when I first got feedback. And
Mhm.
so when I stepped on stage, I was like, oh, I brought the back that they were asking for. And then they're like, it needs to be wider. And I'm like, what? Me and my coach got that view. He's like, a wider back? Are you kidding? Just because we hammered away at it. But
Mhm.
that's not to say that I'm not proud of the progress that I made because,
Right.
the density that I brought to that is just, you know,
Sure.
totally different than when in 2019 when I first was qualified. So I'd say, I definitely want my legs have come up a lot. So I want my upper body to kind of come up as well. So I could definitely use bigger shoulders.
Mhm.
You can never have big enough shoulders to make the illusion. And then obviously my back needs to come up even more. So
Yeah. So I guess my question was like, genetically, is there, like, for me, like, speaking of shoulders, like, do not have to do much for shoulders. They just grow. So it's like, is there a body part for you that's just genetically, like, you feel like you don't even really have to train much? It's already, so, like, genetically really gifted in that area.
mhm. My legs
Legs.
definitely hold a lot of muscle.
Yeah.
But that's obviously years of playing soccer, years of playing softball. They kind of just
Right.
develop. So yeah, I'd say my legs is probably my strong point.
Yeah, I have like very large calves, and people always ask me like, how do you get those calves? And I believe, and I could be completely wrong, but I believe when I was younger, I did a lot of grappling, wrestling, that kind of, and we jump roped all the time.
Oh,
And
there you
those
go.
are and those are my formative years. When I was young, developed, my body was developing. So I personally think that all that jump roping
Oh,
probably like impacted, how large my calves are. It just makes sense, right?
yeah, that's great. I mean, that's the one thing that I don't have is calves. So I envy you. I'm gonna like have my kids jump rope for
Yeah,
years now that I know
that
that that's the key.
apparently it is. Yeah, I like it. It's crazy, but it does make sense, right? If you start early, like training early, you tend to, as you're developing, as you're growing as a human being, all that kind of solidifies. Like,
Mhm.
your personal opinion, you deal with kids. I know you don't necessarily like train them, but what do you think is like the youngest that it's okay for a child to start weight training?
Honestly, I teach 5 and 6 year olds, and I think that that's you
Mhm.
know, so long as you're not giving them a 20-pound dumbbell, but like if they're practicing those movements or
Yeah.
doing push-ups, there's nothing wrong with body weight stuff for 5 and 6 year olds. Like that's how they get stronger.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what I do in my classroom with them. But as far as training, I've seen kids as young as like 7, like doing powerlifting meets,
Yeah.
which is
Wow.
absolutely crazy.
Wow.
But
Yeah,
so
it's
long
a
as it's not to the extreme, everything in moderation because their
sure.
bodies are still developing at the same time. So if you get an injury at that age, that's gonna last quite some time.
Yeah. Have you speaking of injuries, have you had to overcome any injuries yourself?
Thankfully, in bodybuilding, I have not
Mhm.
thus far. I mean, little tweaks. My L4 and L5 bother me sometimes after squatting heavy or
Mhm.
leg press heavy. Little things like that, but nothing severe.
Yeah,
Thankfully.
that's a big thing because people that tend to get injured early on, it tends to domino, and then what happens is you end up having like a career that's shorter than what it potentially could be. So I definitely think like not having injuries and staying safe when you train is important for longevity. And I don't think some people really realize that. Like some people view it as like a badge of honor, like to get injured while training. It's like it's not a good thing, it's a
No.
terrible thing. It means that you're not doing something right. So whether you're overloading yourself or the movement is wrong. How do you feel about like machines versus free weights? Because a lot of people feel like, oh, well, free weights is the way to go. Some people think machines are the way to go. Like, what is your idea on training? I know you have a coach that kind of helps you with that, but
Mhm.
what's your mindset on that?
So it's funny, my training, I mean, sometimes he does give me training logs and different things to do. But my training has kind of really always come from me from day
Mm-hmm.
one, just kind of me researching and following different people on Instagram, following
Right.
figure girls, and kind of just getting to know what works for my body. In the beginning, I did start with free weights and I was all about that. But then obviously seeing, hardcore bodybuilders that are high up, they
Mm-hmm.
do use the cables, they do use the machines, and the pump that you get from that is so different than a free weight. So in regards to that, I definitely did see some quality growth. And I do like them as
Yeah.
much as free weight stuff. It does allow you to get a different type of pump and a different type of focus into the muscle. Like if I was to free weight, I don't know, like an incline press on a barbell, I get a totally different feel if I do it on the Smith machine.
Sure.
That's just allowing your body to be under constant tension. So
Sure. That and it gives you a little bit more focus too. You don't have to worry about that weight coming down
yeah,
too much.
it is
Uh,
safer in a way, but it also does benefit you
yeah.
pump wise.
Yeah. So what do you follow the figure division?
I do.
You do. So what do you think about this upcoming I was going to say Arnold Olympia, but let's just stick to the Olympia. Like who do you feel is going to be,
I'm
in the
excited.
in the
I'm
top?
really excited. I love Sid Gillen. Absolutely love Sid Gillen. Samantha Jering is coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Super excited about her. Saw her last year at the Olympia. She was amazing. Um, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be a really good one. There's a lot of good figure girls.
It's a
So
stacked division. It's a
yeah.
stacked division. Ivana,
Ivana Vuzic, love
yeah,
her. I actually met her at one of my shows this year. We took some pictures together. She's really awesome.
yeah.
I also know.
She's top level, and it's just the problem comes in is you're essentially at this point fighting for, I don't want to put anybody down of course, but you're essentially fighting for 2 through 5 because it's very hard to see Sid losing that
Yeah.
first place. I mean, it can happen,
Yeah.
but you'd have to be really off.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It is. It is true. Like, I mean, she's at the top. She's a top dog. I don't see her
yeah,
taking an L anytime soon because she is just a stallion.
yeah.
Um, Zenobia is looking amazing. I also know
Yes.
her, so she's
She's
awesome.
on she's in your neck of the woods. I had her when I first started my podcast. I had her like she was like my second or third episode. It was really early. We connected, and then and she didn't do well in that Olympia that year because I think she was sick. The next year she came back. I can't remember when, was it last year? Yeah, she placed fourth, I believe.
Hmm.
Right? Was it so? And
Yeah,
that was
top
huge.
five.
That was a big deal. That's going from no placing to fourth. Yeah. So that was a big deal for her.
Yeah, she showed up. I'm excited for her. She's looking awesome.
Hmm.
Her and I keep in contact, and yeah, she is from over here. I actually met her in person during quarantine because she actually traveled to the gym that I was training at,
Okay.
and she trained there as well just to get her workout in. So that was pretty cool.
The sneaky gym, the gym
I
that
know.
everybody sneaked in.
The hole in the wall that kept us all sane.
That's funny. Yeah, well, I mean, that's great to hear your opinion on the show. I look forward to the Olympia. I mean, we should reconnect after the show
Yeah,
and see our thoughts on that division, on the figure
absolutely.
division. So, well, first, I just want to go ahead and tell you thank you for coming on the show. Greatly appreciated. Second, I was going to tell you that picture behind you is pretty cool.
Thanks. This is the world is yours. It's actually
Yeah.
my friends, but it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that is pretty awesome. So, but Amanda, thanks again. So do you train anybody, coach anybody, help anybody, do anything like that?
I get a lot of inquiries, but
Hmm.
I've got so much on my hands. I mean, I
Hmm.
have 20 students that I need to focus on first.
Right. Got it.
So that kind of takes a lot of my time. And then other than that, I mean, I leave work and I clock into my second job, which is bodybuilding and focusing on my training and my nutrition. So
Makes sense.
um, I don't right now. I probably will in the future when I have more time, but
Sure. So let me, I guess, put it this way: if somebody wanted to contact you for whatever reason it may be, just inquiries or maybe come on another show, like what would be the best way to reach out to you?
I say probably Instagram, honestly,
Okay.
through a DM. So my
Awesome.
Instagram's yeah, Amanda Dovar 654, and then yeah, just shoot me a DM and we'll chat. But usually that's kind of the best way to reach me.
Great. And I'll tag everything at the bottom of the video to make it easier for everybody to reach out to you. And again, appreciate your time. Thank you so much. I'll let you get back to your whatever you were doing. I'm
Gotta go
probably
train back
training.
today.
Yeah, there you go. Growing your back. So
There you go. Thank you
awesome.
so much. It was nice meeting you.
You too. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.